starts his gatherings into the zone. Score! Echo wins it, and the Sun Devils make it 18.
Welcome back to Hell Frozen Over, a bit less of a conventional, traditional look. We're on the Tempe campus this time, not exactly near Oceanside, much hotter in here than it is toward near the ice.
Just a little bit, maybe 30 degrees warm around here, but it's nice to get back in the community. So we're doing our on-site locations for this episode.
Bit more of a college feel. I'm Trey Lanthier, joined as always by Nick Marek, and we're here with Hell Frozen Over. So thank you for joining us. We're going to talk about ASU hockey as always, and let's start off looking at ASU right now. The team is 9-0, okay, still undefeated. There's no doubt this team is legitimate. They're the number 2 team in the country right now in the ACHA. And Nick, this is something we've seen as a trend with the Devils. They start out hot, and they're always good at this point in the season. They're still not able to get it done at the end of the season. Do you think there's a different feel around here right now with this 9-0 start as opposed to seasons past?
Well, I feel like it's just a different makeup of the team in general. When you look at them from top down, Coach Powers has showcased the depth of the Sun Devil team, and last weekend was no different. You had goals from Connor Buchanan, Mike Smith, Kyle Hughes, Corey Chisholm. Those are all the first goals in a Sun Devil sweater for those young men. And all these underclassmen are playing a big role, and they know it. They realize, okay, obviously you're going to have the veterans like Colin Heckel, Kale Dolinsky, Danny McAuliffe. The list goes on, Dan Sterna, Jancy. I could keep listing because it's a pretty solid split between the veterans and the underclassmen.
Yeah.
But in 2 years, where's this program going to go? It's going to go in the hand of those young guns. So if they can start getting that respect, kind of building camaraderie of the team, it's going in the right direction. So when you say, is this going to hurt them at a 9-0 record? Honestly, it's not. Yes, time will tell, but I think the schedule's made up in the second half of the season that will prepare them more for a national championship run, assuming they'll get there.
And last weekend, ASU with another sweep, this time of San Diego State, so a lesser opponent to say the least. And Nick, playing a team like San Diego State, and they're clearly inferior, clearly not anywhere near as challenging to ASU, probably not any more challenging than ASU's own D2 team would be. What is the merit, if any, in playing a team that's so low on the radar?
That's a good point. I think actually the Division II ASU versus D1 ASU would be a lot better grudge match out on the rink, but in terms of playing these D2 opponents, you're going to have Colorado State coming as well this weekend, who's technically considered a D2 as well.
Yep.
It's more of just kind of making sure everything's clicking. I do like the approach of the schedule this year just because it makes sure everything's fine-tuned. The Sun Devils have their issues with the power play against Lindenwood, so having that Lindenwood series inserted early in the season was actually the best thing the Sun Devils could do, because against those powerhouse teams, they're saying, here's what we need to work on, boys. We have to come out quicker. We have to work on the specialty teams. We have to work on puck movement. We can't get lazy on our own end, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever Coach Powers wants to tell the team, whatever the leaders want to say, here's what we need to lock down on. They're able to make those minor adjustments, and against Division II opponent, they realize if they make some mistakes, it's going to be okay as long as it's going to be fixed by second semester, because really the only remaining uncontested challenge the Sun Devils have is against possibly down in Tucson.
Yeah.
And then they do have a weekend matchup against Robert Morris, which could be interesting considering they are hosting the national tournament this coming March. But then it's going to be a powerhouse in the second half, so it's a good way of seeing what the Sun Devil team is made of.
And yeah, it's always good to get your team chemistry going against lesser opponents like that. But anyway, that's going to do it for our opening segment. Right now, we're going to take you out to Cronkite, where Allyson Cummings is going to give you the top 5, our inaugural top 5 plays. So stay tuned for that. Nick Marek, Trey Lanthier, Hell Frozen Over. Don't go anywhere.
How do we rise to the challenges before us? Arizona State University.
Welcome back to Hell Frozen Over. I'm Allyson Cummings, and how nice it is to be on the show this week. With Arizona State University steamrolling San Diego State University this past weekend, how fitting is it to have a top 5 segment this week? Let's get started. Number 5 for the week, Jordan Young with the pickpocket. Jordan Young coming from behind and whoosh, he took it right from that SDSU player. What a fantastic play. Looking at it again in slow motion, the Devils a little bit behind, but here comes Jordan Young with a beautiful save, helping out Dietrich and goal. Beautiful. Number 4 this week, Kale Dolinsky with a hat trick. The veterans really responding this game, and so far for the remainder of the season, Kale Dolinsky again, beautiful hat trick goal. He's certainly answering for the Sun Devils, putting them up right now at a 6-0 lead. Here's the third goal that makes it the hat trick. Kale Dolinsky again will be celebrating with his teammates for the remainder of the season. And number 3 for the week, the career first montage. Coach Powers talked about having a fantastic recruiting class, and he has not been disappointed. Beautiful goal from Smith, now Buchanan with a beautiful crash into the net. Next up, Corey Chisholm, a fantastic goal from him also. The season looks promising. And number 2 for the week, Kale Dolinsky again with a beautiful feed from Colin Heckel. Dolinsky puts it right in the back of the net behind Corbin. Look at that goal. What a beautiful moment for both veteran players, Colin Heckel and Kale Dolinsky. Again in slow motion right off the board. Feed from Colin Heckel to Kale Dolinsky, passing the SDSU player, and he's going to put it right in the back of the net, showing him what he's made of. And number 1 for the week, Jordan Young, feed from Collins right to Young. I know it's hard to see, but my gosh, that's a beautiful goal. Jordan Young, the freshman. Look at that, what a fantastic moment. Again in slow motion, feed from Collins, and a shot from Jordan Young right in the net. I'm sorry, Kale, but a freshman beat you out this time.
Well, that'll do it for our top 5 segment this week. Hopefully next week we'll have even more plays to show you. Now I'm going to send it over to Richard Flores and Josh Frons with a look into the ACHA.
Thank you, Allison, and welcome to Around the ACHA. Alongside Richard Flores, I'm Josh Frons, and we'll recap this past weekend in hockey. Number 3, Minot State had the toughest schedule for any top 25 team this weekend. They lost 6-3 and 8-1 to 6th-ranked Adrian. What else did they do this weekend?
They also played Oakland. This was a big series for them, number 3 and number 4 in the rankings, so it was a big one for them, and they won both. So that was huge. I think I had the scores 2-1 in both. In the first game, it was a 2-1 victory for Minot. They won that in a shootout.
Okay, we can move on to another great matchup of the week. We have top-ranked Ohio, and they beat 17th-ranked U of A this weekend, 4-3 and 4-0. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, I think we saw U of A come to Tempe a couple weeks ago, and we saw ASU really wipe the floor with them, to be honest. I mean, they didn't really have a shot in both of those games. So coming in against Oakland, they played really well in that first game, only losing by a goal, 4-3. They had it tied in the third period at one point. Oklahoma managed to get the game-winning goal from Brett Agnew. That was big for them. They had the momentum going into Saturday. They ended up winning on Saturday 4-0 in a shutout. And so Oklahoma definitely looking good going forward.
Right, you mentioned U of A here in Tempe, played ASU, didn't really keep it close. Now playing top-ranked Ohio, they are able to keep the games close and become a competitive team against the top-ranked team in the country.
Right.
Moving along to number 5, Oklahoma, and number 8, Lindenwood. They split this weekend. What can you tell us about that?
I know ASU saw Lindenwood as well earlier in the season, and ASU looked really, really good against Lindenwood. One thing to keep in mind about Lindenwood is last season, 5 losses all year long. Already here, about 10 games into the season, they have 6. So they are definitely struggling this season, and they need something to get them going forward. I know Coach Powers talks about when Lindenwood was here in Tempe, he told us that they are a championship contender year in and year out. So I don't think we've seen the best of Lindenwood. I don't think we've seen the worst of them yet. I think they're definitely going to get better.
Right, they're a young and upcoming team, but because of the tradition of their program, they're going to be somebody who's going to be competitive down the stretch and somebody that you don't want to face late in the season. Now let's move to our upset of the week. We have number 25 ranked Westchester beating number 16th ranked Rhode Island 7-6. They did not do it in a conventional fashion whatsoever. Richard, tell us about that.
Yeah, you mentioned conventional. This is really not how you want to win a hockey game. Down 5-0 at one point in this hockey game. In the second period, they were down 6-1 in the third. This was really an incredible comeback by Westchester. Really unbelievable for any hockey fan watching a game with team down 5, coming back and getting it tied with just 1:07 left to go. That was Tim Higgins who got the game-tying goal there to send it into a shootout. And Westchester managed to get the victory in that shootout 2-1. Big victory for them.
Yeah, it's amazing to come from behind and win a game like that. You don't see it too often. A lot of guys mentally check out at that point. Tells you a lot about this team and their character to stay in there and fight till the very end. Let's move along to our top 6 teams in the country. How do you have them ranked?
All right, well, coming into this week, we had Ohio and ASU ranked 1 and 2. I have that being the same. I think ASU did a great job against San Diego State, even though they were D2 teams, so they keep where they are. But where we differ is we're going to go 3 through 6, and it's a little bit different. Number 3, I have Adrian. They had a great weekend beating Minot State, both of those games, and wiping the floor with them, 8-1, 6-3 in both of those games. So I had them jumping over Minot State at number 3. I had Minot State moving back to number 4 just for that reason, because Adrian was able to beat them. And then 5 and 6, I had Oakland and Oklahoma. Oakland did okay this weekend as well, so I had them moving back a little bit. And Oklahoma, they actually had a really good weekend as well.
All right, we have all the same 6 teams, just in a little bit different order. The first 2 are the same. I have Ohio at 1, ASU as 2. I'm keeping Minot State as the number 3 team in the country, even though they did lose twice to Adrian this week. They beat 4th-ranked Oakland twice this week, and that's enough for me to let them stay in that number 3 spot. So then I move on, and I have Adrian at number 4. They move up in the rankings because of the 2 wins, like we said, against Minot State. 5th, I have Oklahoma. Oklahoma split with 8th-ranked Lindenwood. They're going to stay exactly where they were in last week's rankings. And then 6th, I have Oakland. They slid a little bit. They lost 2 games to Minot State. Let them settle at number 6. We may see these teams moving along more up and down throughout, but we all know that these 6 teams are contenders for the whole season. That'll do it for around the ACHA. For Richard Flores, I'm Josh Frons. We'll be back with more Hell Frozen Over after the break.
Well, thanks, Allison. Thanks, Josh. And thanks, Richard. We're back here, still burning alive out in the Tempe sun. I miss it in that Oceanside arena. Nick Marek, Trey Lanthier. And now let's take a look ahead to this weekend for ASU. They've got a couple games coming up here that most people aren't going to look at and say, you know, ooh, massive opponents. But they're going to get some more ice time. So, Nick, what do you think that they should work on in these games?
Well, for the Sun Devils standpoint, they do have one game at least against a top 25 opponent in Eastern Michigan. That game's Thursday, so that's the one that's going to start it off. So kind of just to parallel off what we said in the first segment, it's a chance for them to fine-tune those little things, especially the power play. I think Coach Powers really wants to work on the specialty teams. He worked a couple of different lines. You're seeing Corey Chisholm getting a lot of action. They kept the Colin Heckle, Collins, and McGinty line together for some power plays.
In there just throws everything off.
But that line was clicking fairly well. But then it's still just a little bit of finding the right chemistry on the ice, finding the right personnel to throw out there. We've seen the defensive pairing shift around. Brian Parson, his only ice time was on the power play because he wanted to see if he was still comfortable there. So, I mean, there's just those small minor adjustments that the Sun Devils are away from. If they really want to make that top team and they want to stay at that number 1 ranking once they get it, assuming they can in the future, you have to make sure everything's locked down. That's one of those. And Eastern Michigan's going to be the best chance. And then again, just like with the Lindenwood series, if you mess up in Eastern Michigan, great. You have Colorado State to make those adjustments. And I think that's going to help the Sun Devils.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of those benefits of having 2 different teams on 2 different days with Thursday, Friday. Do you see after the Eastern Michigan game, the Devils, clearly taking a step down with Colorado State, and we just talked about lesser opponents like San Diego State in that last segment. Do you see any chance that the Devils face a test at all this weekend? Do you see them being worn down a bit by Eastern Michigan?
I don't think they do. I feel like the Sun Devils always come in very prepared. Coach Powers must be the best motivational speaker to kind of rally this group up in the past 3 years. I think that's where our next segment should be at. We should just hold it in the locker room and try to have them in the background, the team in the background, to just see really what goes on there. Because whatever happens, the Sun Devils always come out firing. If it's sluggish, it's sluggish, but eventually they'll find it. We haven't seen the Sun Devils team yet where they really have been like, man, that was a bad 40 minutes of hockey. Man, that was a bad full game. It's really been, that was a bad 5-minute spurt, but then they had like one of their best 15-minute spurts of the season.
Exactly.
So it's able to make those adjustments. I don't think it's going to be any chance of getting caught up. As Richard and Josh kind of just highlighted in the last segment, when they said Minot State obviously got swept in 2 games, but those were against the higher end opponents. So Sun Devils know they're kind of creating that separation already from the rest of the pack. So it's really a chance to pound home and make a stand for the top 2 teams.
Well, yeah, and the Sun Devils, as you said, have a pretty easy schedule for this quarter, at least during the fall, but they're going to head into the spring hoping to get some steam under them and going into the national tournament. But that's going to do it for us in Hell Frozen Over. For Nick Marek, Josh Frons, Allyson Cummings, and Richard Flores, I'm Trey Lanthier, and you've listened to WCSN's production of Hell Frozen Over.